Hello. I'm Dan Lutz, and welcome to the latest broadcast of the Dank Live Show. That's Dan plus Tank equals Dank Live. This is Saturday, May 4th, so it's the weekend. Though I haven't remembered what a weekend is because it's every day. We're into, probably close to 68, 69 broadcasts straight in a row, all for the wonderful purpose of informing everyone about what's going on with the world and the financial system and, the QAnon movement and, and today, like funds, what's happening with the funds from the Manna World Holding Trust and, the big offensive that started in QAnon. The offense has started, and we're seeing shots being fired by words, in deeds. We have the Congress is basically holding hearings, and they're shutting down others that want to speak. So it's all over the place. It's starting to just it's gonna ramp up because now, since the offense has started, they're gonna now be in a position of trying to shout it down, right? Because they don't have really any defense other than to call names and shout, and make false claims about things and anything that will come their way, they're going to end up closing down any debate. I'm talking about the House of Representatives. So, but the news is just starting with the avalanche of information coming out. Words like treason are being used. The Comey is in the crosshairs for the report that's coming out this week. We're seeing things, such as saying they're saying openly he orchestrated the spying. Comey orchestrated the spying. They're also saying openly that this is bought and paid for by the Democrats and Hillary, and that they used, and Obama was the one conducting the spying. So it's ramping up, and on the side of the Manna World Holding Trust, we can see that there's signs out there. We'll wait for Tank to come on for it to specifically talk about those things. But we'll see those signs are happening out there in the banking world and in the political world. Mnuchin, is out there, in China trying to create an RV, and then we start seeing them talking about big amounts of money being spent. Right, they come out of nowhere. Right, so like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer come out of the White House 2 days ago, beaming right there. So why are they so happy coming out of seeing Trump? Well, I know one thing. They were played last time they had a meeting, right? Trump set them up big time on the wall. Got them to basically, fight him on the wall to show their side. He's on the winning side of this. No matter what they do, they look bad, and they're losing audience as fast as the mainstream media is losing audience. Let's backtrack a little bit because there's new people that are coming on, and let's talk about a few things before Tank comes on. Tank, he came out of the currency revaluation world, meaning that was his focus until he realized that there was a problem. It was part of the GCR, Global Currency Reset, called the RV, the currency revaluation. So I came out of the historical bonds, again, for the Global Currency Reset. And so we crossed paths about 3 months ago and started talking about, doing just a show about why the GCR is a big lie. Not from the standpoint of the people involved not proceeding as though there's some plan and they're going to make it happen. There is a plan. Top level people in governments and banks and corporate America and military generals and presidents of countries around the world, all of them were promised that if they, hold the line and they get things set up, that after this global currency reset happens, they will be quadrillionaires. They will be so rich, and everyone else involved is going to be quite wealthy with all of this new currency that's going to be, put into play. And it turns out that this was the plan. Now, I know that there was something that was quite wrong, and I couldn't quite peg it. I was always wondering who behind the scenes was really pulling the strings. Was it really the white hats all the way to the top? Was Trump, the guy that's running the show? This is what people were saying. The people I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with bankers. I'm dealing with people that are, in government and have, and are positioning themselves. It's not a fantasy. It was happening. We're talking about, taking what the historical system that nobody was taught, right? And if you do any digging, you'll find out about how the system was started with the IMF and the World Bank and the Bank of International Settlements, the Federal Reserve, the Vatican Bank, how this all came together. And there was a plan, right? And their plan was to build this pyramid structure. And the design of it was, and these countries around the world would say, yeah, I'm all in. Why? Because it showed a mechanism in which everyone was sharing the assets of the world to create wealth for everyone in the form of currency that went out into the world. And that currency was to be accessed by way of humanitarian projects for the countries, not individuals, countries. They got to build a dam, they got to build a road, they got to build schools, they got to build infrastructure. They have a project, hospitals. What's a project? All these projects go in, and now how do they get funded? Well, an asset comes in along with that project. Now, the asset wasn't enough. Let's just say it was gold, to make it simple. There have been a lot of different assets. Let's just say it's gold. The asset isn't enough, right, in itself to do the project. But they take it to a trading program, right? And that trading program would basically trade the project with all these other projects. But there was these series of buyers, right? And so these traders would all trade, but they always traded it up to the next one. They made a profit when they traded the project. I'm going to sell you this much, right? I'm going to mark it up 30%, and I'm going to sell it to you. Just picked a number. I could mark it up 200%. Say that. Okay, I doubled the price. I'm selling you 20%. I'm going to sell 20% over here. I'm going to sell 20% over here. I'm going to sell 20% over here. And then the guys over there, they're selling me their projects, right? Higher. I'm paying, right? So we're all paying higher as this goes up and around, and I resell and I resell. And the value of these projects is going up and up and up. This is that extra value that is created in cash in the system. That when the project needs to be executed and they start putting out the money for it, it's coming out of this funds that were created for it. Now, in concept, this is a great system, right? Because all this money is now going to flow out. The problem is, in this system, they gave the keys to it to the Federal Reserve, a private bank. Now, everyone who's signing up thinks this is not a private bank. They think it's part of the U.S. government because that's the con. This is the deception. The private bank that pretended to be the U.S.-owned Federal Reserve. And because of this, all these countries said, yeah, let's go, because we're dealing with this country. Not knowing that the other part of the design of this system is that this asset that they're turning over, right, they're getting money for it, right? So they think that they're getting, in fact, they're not just getting the money for this, they're getting this much bigger amount for this asset, for this gold. And what were they given? Pretty paper. And what's the value of that pretty paper, right? Well, at the time, they're paying for things and getting it done. But in the end of this game of Monopoly, the bankers win all the properties. They own all the assets. So that's the hidden part of this game that the countries didn't understand when they're all joining in as a corporate entity, right? They had to join the UN. How do they do that? They had to make an incorporated entity called their country. And they now participate in this maritime law corporate system, right, that is supposed to give them this liquid cash out of the programs for trading humanitarian projects so that they can now all make money. But it didn't happen. Yeah, and they started doing projects in the beginning, but then they didn't start funding the projects correctly, or they wouldn't approve them, get a number from the World Bank for their humanitarian project, so it couldn't be traded, so the money couldn't flow into the system. So this is the con that was done, right? Because they were keeping the cash for themselves. It was a power play. They gave it to their homeboys, right? These are the guys that are going to, yeah, they're buddies, right? The good old boys gang, whatever you want to call it. The family members, right? Only the people that are in the inner group, whether it's 301 families or whatever, however that was, it wasn't to the everyday project owner. Let's say it was a city somewhere wanting to build a hospital. Money wouldn't get there, except for, as Tank likes to say, T-shirt and website money.
Yep.
So now this is the system that we're talking about that is crashing because all the assets have been transferred to the top of the pyramid through this system. You have a project, put your asset up. Great. You register it to the monarchy. The global monarchy that was the Great White Throne, as Tui likes to call it. I actually think it's a good name for it, the Great White Throne. Because it talks about it as a monarchy, and it was, a system of monarchies, and that was been in place. Just think about all of the monarchies that have existed in the world. When you go back to Greece, and they formed the first, Senate and the first, form of government that was a democracy, right? That you had votes and that from the governed. That form of government, has been around for a while, and they keep using it. But there's still the monarchies all over the place. They still own the land. The senators, back then, were the ones that were the landowners. They were the ones that held the slaves, the citizens that worked for the senators, and then the companies or the businesses. You say companies might not be the right word. So we're fast forward now to where now the system is collapsing. The GCR was put out there as a mechanism for them to completely crash the whole economic system, and them to come in as the saviors. The bankers come in as the saviors, Oh, you guys messed up with your money. You're bad. We know what to do. Line up right here. Get your vaccinations. Get your food credits for the day, and go to work.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Or go to the stadium
You
and
know,
and visit the zombie apocalypse because there's too many in this area. Or whatever their plan was doesn't really matter. It wasn't for the good. Go ahead, Tank. Sorry.
yeah, no, no. I just think it's fascinating, right? When you hear Tui talk about, the manna, right? He's talking about it like it's life, it's energy, it's the essence, the beauty of, that connects everything, right? All these amazing qualities, right? It's this unlimited substance for the potential of creation, right? But it's so interesting, right? Because what they did is they perverted everything, right? Even our sacred texts, right? So I've talked about this before. I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the show, Dan, but um, you know, in the scriptures, right? The biblical scriptures, right? Now, these are constantly perverted, and so when you have the Exodus, right, or the Jews are in the wilderness of Sinai. So while they're there, it's manna that falls from heaven, right? But it's nothing like the manna that Tui describes. It's much more like universal income, right? You get just enough for that day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And don't keep any extra, right? Because if you keep any extra, it's because you don't have faith, like you don't trust God, right? Because the way that the God's described in this portion of the Bible is a God that wants you completely dependent on Him every day and to worship Him, right? So that's all you get. But I'm always just fascinated by these things because the wilderness of Sinai. If you're if you look at what happened there, this is a spell that was cast on humanity, right? And because they wandered in the wilderness, right? They stayed in this place for 40 years. And while they were there for 40 years, they all of the generation that knew what happened in Egypt.
Oh, well, we lost Link, lost Tank. All right, Tank, come on back. So yeah, so they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and until two generations have had basically gone by, and at that time they were not living as long, right? And so a lot of people have died off. So the idea of what happened in Egypt was gone. There's a few of the older people around, right? But two generations down, they're not listening to their grandparents, right? They're just doing their own thing. They're anxious to go out and make a new world, and coming out of the wilderness after 40 years. So the younger generation is the one that's going to be the new leaders, and so they can go forth and be a blank slate.
But wait, but here's what really happened.
Okay, go
So
ahead.
because Canaan land was the promised land, right? Now, first of all, this new generation, all they knew was that they worshipped, you know, Yahweh in this cloud, right? And the cloud would descend on Joshua's tent, right? Which would be like Yahshua, was what it really was, right? Which means Yahweh is salvation. So, from what I understand, that goes back to Yahweh goes back to Anu, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, basically, all they knew was Anu, right? That's all they knew. They so this whole generation in their whole life, because they were all at that time the oldest anybody could have been was 40 years old because everybody else was killed off except for Moses. Moses died right at the end, except for Joshua and Aaron, right? So as they're as they go over into cross the River Jordan, they go over and what they're doing they go over as a warring nation. So by the time they come up out of the wilderness of Sinai, they've had the spell cast on them, right? And in different versions, historical versions, the belief is, well, Egypt was obviously powered, right? Like the pyramid and all of the various they're like energy points, but I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head. But each one of these were they gathered energy, and there's lots of evidence to show that Egypt was fully powered, right? So so the belief was that what was powering it was the Ark of the Covenant, because in the Temple in Giza, there's a space that looks exactly like what you would have for where the Ark of the Covenant was fixed, right? And that they stole the Ark. Now, the way the scriptures read is they built the Ark from scratch in the wilderness. But so I'm not I don't know exactly, but that makes sense to me that they took the Ark. So when they go up, no army had ever lost that held the Ark, right? So when they went up, they had 40 years of training. They trained. They were training all the time, right? They were building an army, like, because they only even counted the men who were of the age to go to war.
Mhm.
So by the time
You're you're muted. You're muted. All right. So it's a cliffhanger. We're hanging on, waiting for the word.
okay, sorry,
There, you're back.
yeah, so
It
so
said you left us on a cliffhanger.
yeah, so they were a warring nation, is my point, right? So they went up there. This is all classic training, right? And even while they were, the tabernacle is called the tabernacle of witness, right? And when you hear the Apostle Paul, he talks about the temple, right? And the temple is just the more extravagant tabernacle, right, where the Ark of the Covenant was kept. He says, what? Know ye not that your body is the temple? Now, you can actually take the tabernacle, and every single part of the tabernacle correlates exactly to your physical body, right? You could each piece. There's an altar sin sacrifice that's four sides, and there's there's you get up as you go through each part. There's a four-sided table with two crowns around it, right? Like, and there's two loaves of bread on it, right? And they actually refer to your heart as the tables of the heart. And then you also have you have two crowns around your heart called coronary arteries, right? Two crowns, and then you have 12 pints of blood that pump through the average human's body. So you had these, they were broken up into 12, 12 loaves of bread or something like that. You know, so you go through all these different, um, you go through all these pieces. You can go through every part of it. Now, the most important part though is when you get into the most holy place, because in the most holy place is where you have Michael and Gabriel, Michael and Gabriel on the Ark of the Covenant. Now, Michael is the warrior angel. Gabriel is the messenger angel, right? So in your brain, you have motor or action, which would be the warrior. And then you have sensory, which would be the sending and receiving of messages, which would be Gabriel, right? And then in between them, the, their 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 wings would arc over to create a heart, right? And in the center of that is the ark of the covenant. Is the throne, the throne where the hierarchy in your brain would sit, which would be your pineal gland, would be on the seat of the Ark of the Covenant. Then within the Ark of the Covenant, you have the Ten Commandments, and there's seven commandments on one side, three commandments on the other side, and that was the master law to the people. So in your body, you have the pituitary gland, right, which is the master gland to the body. And there's seven hormones that are secreted from one lobe, and then three secreted from the other lobe, giving you your 10 commandments, right? And these dictate the things that we usually correlate to not being able to change. But what they did was the original 10 commandments were just heart shaped. There was no commandments. It was just the law that was written in your heart and mind. It was the natural law that governed us. We just naturally knew what to do. It was innate in us. What they did is they took two tombstones that we talk about being, that we call the law of sin and death, right? Which is the 10 Commandments. It's 613 ordinances altogether. And they took these two tombstones and they sealed it in the ark, giving it power, right? So that is like them sealing a mentality into us. And then what they did was on the Day of Atonement, so on the day that this physical tabernacle was symbolically being made at one with the conscious physical reality of the people, the high priest would take this this breastplate that had 12 stones on it, and the 12 stones on it represented the 12 tribes, right? So it represented all the people, and he would put that on his chest. So when he went in, he was representing all the people. And what he would do is he would go in with a blood sacrifice, and he would go in on the right side, walk up to the left side, up and around, and the ark would spin and come back around and go out the left side, forming a figure eight. So now a figure eight we would associate with eternity, but it's not eternity the way or infinity, not in a good way the way we think, like where it's infinite. It's a cycle. It's a time loop. It loops around and around and around and repeats over and over and over again. And so they would repeat that, and they repeated it for 40 years. And for 40 years, they repeated this spell. And what it did is it cemented that whole generation of people. It cemented a mentality in them, right? The whole ideology was cemented in them, and it was, and the whole idea is that of it put on them the plague of death, right? So it shortened our lifespan and changed the way that things, existed in our actual reality. It was that effective that it actually changed what was happening on the planet. And that was a 40-year long spell, a ritualistic spell that they put on all of humanity. So you want to talk about how deep the cultural guidance goes, how long this has been happening? I mean, I'm not sure exactly when that happened, but I mean that's a real, a real curse they're describing in the Old Testament.
Well, I haven't heard of it that way. It's interesting. I'll have to digest it. But I would say some of the conversations I used to have in the past about, let's say what was striking me was this one of the things when they go into this tabernacle is also to open up, a gateway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always saw that the 12 stones, even though they're representing each tribe, that those gems they each have a different vibration,
Yeah.
and it was a basically like a combination lock to unlock a portal. Anyway, that's just one of the things I used to kind of think about back then when I was more into studying this side of things.
Well, you do have, the tabernacle is symbolic, right? I mean, and it does correlate, I mean, really, really accurately with the body, showing that how we are really in and of ourselves multidimensional beings. Because what you have is when you go from the outer court into the holy place, you have to cross a veil, right? And the veil on the veil is sewn into the veil were angels, right? So you have these metaphysical beings, right, showing that you're crossing into another dimension. And then within that, and then within the holy place, right, it was 45 feet long from the beginning of the holy place to the most holy place. So you have three sections of 15 feet. In the first section, there was no veil, showing there was no separation between the next two dimensions. And then, but in the most holy place, there was a veil that was always closed, except for one day a year. But all that is just symbolic of, crossing through the dimensions, and it could be exactly what you're saying, different vibration.
Okay, yeah, it was just one of the. I just added that as it crossed my mind when you were bringing it up, and I'm thinking, I see this as one one way, and you're talking about spell casting. I get it. It's kind of okay when you're thinking things internally. You affect yourself and in your actions. You create the right neuropeptides out of your brain to go ahead and then it goes out into your body and it cause reactions to actually create reality around you. When you speak things out loud, that vibration is then outside of you and it reverberates. When you write things down, right, and you have an image or of a word or a symbol, it vibrates and it continues to vibrate while it exists. So if you write things in stone, they tend to last for a long, long, long time. If you write things on paper, it may be gone in 10 years. If you so when you're affecting the world around you and you want to put create a spell, and you want to put things onto stone and then incorporate that into uh, a symbol of power, you're creating a vibration, right? That is so I'm kind of giving kind of a definition of how a spell functions, from this taking the word spell. I'm using it poetic at this point, as I don't know exact definition that you're using for it, but so when you're taking these power objects and putting them in these vibrating things and putting them together, and then you have repeated ritual for 40 years, and you're creating a reality. It's what is going to vibrate. So now, if there is a cycle that is to be repeated again and again and again and again and again and again, it's part of the program. So that's part of the vibration.
Exactly. And it was it's an obedience program, right? You don't think for yourself, just be obedient, right? And that's pretty standard Christian programming, right? When I was a kid, we used to sing a song in Sunday school. That was obedience is the very best way to show that you believe. That was the song, and it's and it's really just talking about subservience. So
Subservient to Anu.
well, yeah, I mean, and see now I struggle with this because Yahweh, the name Yahweh, the Tetragrammaton, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, "Let everything that hath breath praise Yahweh," and it's made up of 3 letters, Y, H, and W, and in the English language, those are glide sounds, meaning you don't need your tongue or your vocal cords to make those sounds, so you naturally breathe Yahweh. So that's where I struggle with the whole Anu thing, because I'm like, well, that makes sense to me because I can always see how everything breathes, right? But
Life
I
breathes.
also yeah. So it's like all these things, my I mean in my religion for the past, for 20 years, my whole adult life was very, very. I mean, the founder of my religion had cured every disease known to man. Um, he predicted every major world event for 45 years. Every major world event documented.
So was that Inky?
It might have been. I mean, he went by Dr. Henry Clifford Kinley.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. So I just throwing a curveball out there. So
yeah, it could be. I mean,
so Doctor Who again? I'm sorry.
Dr. Henry Clifford Kinley.
Henry Clifford
Kinley.
Kinley.
Yep. But I mean, he proved a lot of things to a lot of people. I mean, in fact, back then you couldn't mess with the Catholic Church. Like somebody mentioned something negative about the Catholic Church in a postcard and went to prison. Dr. Kinley put the vicarious filii Dei on the Pope, showed how that added up to be 666, published it in the book, sent it to the Pope, drew like, horns and like 666 on the Pope's picture, got permission from the Pope even, sent it to the Pope, and the Pope just donated his crown to the Smithsonian after that. So so he did a lot. He did a lot of amazing
I'm
things.
done
But
with this one. Yeah, the jig's up on this.
yeah, they found out.
Yeah, well, turn into a deposit. I'll donate it to the Smithsonian, and they can put it in the same place where they put all the giant skeletons.
Oh, what I would not do to go to this place like where like Indiana Jones Temple
Yeah,
of
I
Doom.
know.
Like
It's the same thing. That
I,
giant warehouse. Yeah.
I just think of like all the amazing vibrations and all the amazing things that must be there. I would just love to, if there
Well,
was a way I could put my hands on them and hear them tell the story. It'd be
well,
great.
they told us what's in it. I mean, they had a whole series on it, Warehouse 13.
Oh yeah, what
Yeah.
was in it? That's cool.
Oh no, it's a whole program. It was on Sci-Fi Channel for a number of years. Um, and which literally about the warehouse where they store all these items.
Right.
It was claimed they claimed they disguised it as a store where they store all IRS records, so no one would be
Because who would ever want to go there?
no one would ever going to go there. That's it. So who do you work for? I work for the IRS. Oh, don't talk to me. Good cover, right?
Yeah.
No one you want to talk
Yeah.
to about what you're doing. Oh, I'm investigating my IRS. Oh, okay, go on, leave me alone.
You know what? That makes sense too. Like if you saw somebody like like the Men in Black kind of character, and they said they were the IRS, you'd be like, yeah, totally. You look like you're the IRS. You're the most boring person in the world. So that would make sense.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
Well, do
Fascinating.
do we want to get into some
Yeah,
update?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
I mean,
derail you.
we kind of went on quite a tangent here, but that's
Nah, it's
okay.
okay. It's good.
I'll send Tui the link just as I'm thinking about it.
So, um, so the status of everything right now is, well, last that I had heard, um, with funds coming in is that the uh Kim was working on a bypass so that the transfers wouldn't run into any human interaction. The Pentagon was able to clear funds on Tuesday. Coincidentally, I think it was $2 trillion, right? They cleared for the Pentagon on Tuesday, and the same day, I think, or the next day, Nancy and Chuck, they came walking out of the Oval Office, out of the White House, all happy, and I just knew they were up to something because they had agreed to a $2 trillion infrastructure build out for the United States. Meanwhile, in China, Mnuchin, who is there, you know, uh, providing services for the Chinese elders, I guess, um, they had already made an arrangement when that money came in that it would go through GCHQ, which is the head of the NSA, and the General Alexander, Keith Alexander. I guess he had made arrangements to transfer that money directly to the Chinese elders because remember the Chinese elders see the military as their slaves. So Keith Alexander, good job on that. Way to prove them right. So Kim pulled that money back, and that was the arrangement. And then the Rothschilds. This was the best news. This is my favorite part of the story. The Rothschilds called the Pentagon and demanded that the money be sent to them that was given to the Pentagon. And the Pentagon was like, "That's not going to happen." And I was like, "Go boys, good job, finally." Jeez. So,
Why do you don't? It didn't come from you.
yeah, right, exactly. It's like, yeah, I'm not giving you anything. Like, I hope. I mean, like that word is so harsh, slave, right? Like when the Rothschilds said in that letter that the military is their slave, you could feel the just the evil when they said it. I'm like, wow, you know. So so that money last I knew was pulled back, but you know there is a methodology Kim did use that I know she has access to, and I think it would have to wake them up, right? Because right now today, all the Democrats are talking about, like, on the on more limited circle, everyone's like the Democrats are screwed, right? Or the deep state, really. I shouldn't say just the Democrats, but the deep state is screwed, right? They all know it. All the 8chan, 4chan guys are talking about this, right? They know. Well, the real reason why they're screwed, right, is because Kim just flexed her muscles a little bit, right? And what she did was she brought in the Pentagon and finally got them on board and told them Steve Mnuchin's no good, and Trump's involved in it, right? He had Nancy and Chuck there involved on the plot, right? And she's been telling them, look, your country is run by the dragons. So she just outed this guy, Alexander, right? Showed that Steve Mnuchin is absolutely, a traitor. At 1,000%, that man is a traitor. Right now plotting to steal the money from the United States. And what they were going to do is they were going to start the RV in China, right? So now those were funds from the trust, by the way, right? That they were stealing. So everybody, like right now, there's another call going on, and I guess they've been having calls every day, a couple times a day, and it's all big news because the RV's right upon us. Well, the reason why those guys think the RV is right upon them is because Kim was moving money into the system through the Pentagon. So they think that's their money. They think that's for the RV, but that's not for the RV, and the RV is never going to happen. So,
wah, wah, wah.
yeah, exactly. So everybody thinks they have insider information. If you're talking to like a General Kelly or a General Alexander, you might want to pull back because you might not be getting the best intel. But anyway, but it appears to me, this is just my, these are the pieces I'm putting together. It would appear to me that Kim set all this up to play it out in front of them so they could all see what was going on, right? To show how all these different people are involved in stealing this money. That's all they really cared about, right? Was getting the money wherever. And they proved it, right? And Kim had to make the money big enough to, have an impact. So a couple $1 trillion is big enough for them to say, yeah, we'll get this. And then they thought they pulled one over on her, right? Not Trump. Nancy and Chuck walked out of there like a couple of little chubby kids that just stole candy.
I've got it queued up. I can play it.
Oh yeah, do it, please.
Back it up a little bit here.
Bold. Our distinguished leader from the Senate will announce how big and how bold.
Thanks.
And what remains to be seen is another. We agree that we would meet again to talk about how it would be paid for. But we're very pleased with the positive attitude toward recognizing the trillions of dollars of needed according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, the deficit that we have in our infrastructure. And now we have an opportunity to work together in a bipartisan way. Building infrastructure of America has never been a partisan issue, and we hope to go forward in a very nonpartisan way for the future. With that, I'm just pleased to yield to the distinguished
well, thank you. And it was a very constructive meeting. It's clear that both the White House and all of us want to get something done on infrastructure in a big and bold way. And there was goodwill in this meeting. That was different than some of the other meetings that we've had, which is a very good thing. First, we agreed that infrastructure is crucial to the future of America. We agreed it creates jobs. We agreed it keeps us competitive. We agreed that for 25 years, this kind of a big, bold bill that we could pass would make America a better place. This is not just a 1 year or 2 year. We agreed on a number, which was very, very good, $2 trillion for infrastructure. Originally, we had started a little lower. Even the president was eager to push it up to $2 trillion. That is a very good thing. And then we talked about a number of things we would do. Obviously, the roads and the bridges and the highways, obviously water, but also a big emphasis on broadband, that every American home, we believe, needs broadband, emphasis on the power grid, so we could bring clean energy from one end of the country to the other, and several other issues. We told the president that we needed his ideas on funding, that the last bill he proposed, which A, was smaller, but B, took as much money away, and the speaker emphasized this, took as much money away as it put in, wasn't going to work. So where does he propose that we can fund this? Because
Do you have an idea, Trank, where the funding can come from?
I do. Hopefully they'll call. I'm hoping.
Well, I guess we don't. I don't. We have to go any further because they're just
Yeah.
That- I guess the point, I want to that they're both like beaming, right? Nancy can't get the smile off of her face.
Oh yeah.
Now, how much was she going to get out of the $2 trillion? Is what I'm thinking. She's thinking.
Well, I think they look at it, that they won, right? They stole the assets.
Right.
That's all they care about. If they could prove that they could steal the assets, that's it. I mean, it's some weird twisted law, right? And they're, perverted evil subculture. And so if they brought the money in, they satisfied the chosen one, Steve Mnuchin, and whoever's pulling his strings are the Chinese elders, right? The Gaos or the Lees that are there, right now, probably furious, right?
Right.
So they thought they were going to bring that money in and steal it, and they thought they had their hands on it, right? They thought they already had it.
Rothschild's called the Pentagon and says, "Okay, you got to send us half," or they wanted all of it. What was it that they wanted?
All of it.
They wanted all the money.
Think about it. All the money used to go to the Federal Reserve, right?
Right.
So all the money to go to the Federal Reserve, they would just take it, right? And then they would, throw together some fake trade platform, or like the creation of money, and they pump out a whole bunch of fake currency. Now all this money comes pouring out, but inflation goes up, so the dollar doesn't go as far. More money comes out. There's more money in the economy, but it's worth less.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile they're balling, So
Yeah.
So yeah, that appears to be, just my opinion. That well, I mean, I have pretty good direct facts, but it appears to me like that was just a setup, and things going on.
It's another. He just keeps playing them. It's like every step of the way they think that they're pulling something off, and Trump really has outmaneuvered them. So this is just another example of it. And of course, they don't know that when this first hits, right?
Right, they don't know. So then you have, so you see Nancy yesterday or today, I guess it was. I'm not sure which day it was, but
So this happened on April 30th, right? So now we're just 3 days into it.
Right. So then you have Barr go before Congress, and and they had their typical, useless, mediocre, law and order tactics that they try to use to make themselves look like they're really, really serious business people, right? Because they saw an episode of Law and Order, how the lawyer acted there, so they try to do that, right? They're like, answer the question, yes or no, yes or no. I'm like, stop, you're obnoxious, right? Like, so they thought they were going to outsmart Barr, and they're all trying to paint it like Barr lied. Barr didn't lie. He saw right through, what is a common practice where you dump so much information, right, that you try to bury your competitor, right? But you give them all the information, but you give them so much they can't get to what they need, right? So that 400 plus page report that Mueller put out there, it was riddled with just nonsense, right? 2 years and he couldn't come to a conclusion about obstruction, so he knew he didn't have the president on obstruction. But instead of just saying that, right, because his handlers were going to, kill him if he put that in there. So he said, I couldn't say, So what he did was he put in all these nonsensical details, all these, gossip and all types of things, how he felt about this. You saw Feinstein. She said something to the effect of, she challenged Barr, like, but President Trump told his lawyer to reword things because it made him look bad. It's like, yes, of course he did. And he goes, that's not a crime. He's like, and your point is, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And Barr saw right through all of it. He knew right away what he was doing. He called him out on it. And then Mueller, was twisted about it. But then Mueller came right back, because Mueller must be very afraid of going to prison or something, because he came right back to like straighten it out, like when Pelosi made accusations against Barr,
Right.
because the way they were talking, Pelosi and Kamala Harris, they came right out. And this is what they do. They don't have an opinion of their own, right? They don't think for themselves. They don't read any of these documents. They don't even know how to. So what happens is their handler calls them up. Their handler calls them up and says, "Go back out and say this," right? Like say that it's a horrifying thing. So Nancy Pelosi, right? Because now she realizes the money's gone. So it was a very real, dramatic pain she was feeling because she probably had her life threatened, you know. And so she comes out and she's like, I mean, you could tell she's a hot mess. Her hair's all over the place. She's almost in tears talking about what Barr said. But nobody with any reasonable logic could have listened to what he said. They try to accuse him of not even reading the case. I'm like, he knew the law so well. He was citing the law to them repeatedly as they tried to trap him into things, and he just kept smashing him in the face over and over again. You know, he's like, "There's no obstructions here based on the law." He was or the actions, the combination of the two. There's no case here.
Right.
So I'm kind of giddy about all that. That stuff's it's pretty fun. It's real. It's happening in front of us. I like it.
Yeah, I'm actually just looking up Nancy, see if I can get her on there, but it looks like it's being hidden. It should pop right up here, but I can't find it right away. So
yeah. So, anyways, that's kind of the around the horn of what's going on. What I see, and it's really a tragedy when you think about this is our government. This is our government, right? This is what they're spending their time doing. They're just going out, still going. And it's at this point, even the Democrats who are like, out there on the fence have got to be like, wow, this really is a witch hunt. Why are they still talking about this? I mean, there is a civil war taking place in Venezuela. And today, I mean, I got this from, I think.
okay, I think I found it.
Oh.
The Russia.
If I go ahead, well, I'm sorry, I got to zoom in.
No, play it. Go ahead, play it.
Yeah, I'm just looking for where she's here. It's like they put it in the heading, but where is she at in the whole thing? Here it is. I found it.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi commented on the Attorney General yesterday and his testimony before Congress. Listen to this.
He lied to Congress, as the Attorney General of the United States of America was not telling the truth to the Congress of the United States. That's a crime.
Well, what are the Democrats up to with Bill Barr? Again, they're trying to shut down this investigation or smear him to the point that any.
All right. Well, that's right.
That accusation, that's a big, like, that's what I don't know if people are catching on to. They think the actions taking place by the president and Barr, that their actions are horrible, but in reality, these accusations are so out of line.
And Nancy Pelosi was a city.
Sorry, I'm just looking for another one.
Yeah, I mean, they're so far out of line.
I think I got it.
Go ahead.
Have the potential for subpoenas. They haven't issued subpoenas, but that's where we see some of that activity. As you probably know, on the articles of impeachment for President Nixon, Article 3 was that he ignored the subpoenas of Congress, that he did not honor the subpoenas of Congress. This is very, very serious. Statements being made by the President of the United States has given a blanket statement that he's not going to honor any subpoenas is obstruction of justice.
All right. Get a little bumpy.
Anyway.
First of all, it's not obstruction of justice because Congress does not have the power to exact justice on anyone.
Right.
Certainly not on the Attorney General.
It goes to the Justice Department, and they're the ones that basically will do they analyzing that. And of course, they can have their own impeachment, right? But they have to have a crime.
Well, right, and they are accountable.
What is the high crime and misdemeanor? That he did. He what is it? He said that we should get rid of Mueller to his attorney, and an attorney said, no, it's not a good idea, and he said, okay.
See, now, so Pelosi makes that accusation.
Right.
Now she's basing that, on, whatever, she thinks Mueller was supposed to put in the report.
Right.
But she hasn't read it. She doesn't know. So she just walked out there a hot mess, probably because they told her, like, you were the Black Dragon, but, we have a clone that will play your part for you. And you'll be turned into, Soylent Green. I'm sure they dropped it on her, like something like that. That's why she's a hot mess.
Yeah, I saw that video where she was looking like a hot mess, right? Coming out, her mess. That's what I was looking for. I couldn't find it right now. So, but I wanted to play that one. If you have the link for it, let me know.
Oh, if I pull it up.
It does show how disheveled she is, right? She's definitely not right. Now this is again 2 days after they're beaming at the White House about $2 trillion being spent, right? So they're thinking they're moving forward with their agenda, and now again they were played. They don't. It's gone. So, but we're now looking forward to having that $2 trillion. Oh, that went to the military. Is that for a military budget, or is that for projects?
Well, that $2 trillion was for the Pentagon funding, and I'm not sure. The Pentagon is acting currently as the interim Treasury, right? Because Kim will not give another dime to the Department of the Treasury as long as Steve Mnuchin still has a job, because he's in China. I mean, the guy's in China right now, allegedly negotiating trade terms with China. Well, he's not negotiating trade terms, other than trading his soul to the devil, right? To bring in the RV with them so he can be the next chosen one or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what he's doing, and they still have their hold on the weak-minded people that are there, right? They can just convince them that that we win this, right? We've seen the timeline from the Looking Glass and all this stuff. But the Looking Glass technology got shut down in 2013, right? So they haven't seen anything, in 6 years. So they have no idea what's actually happening now. So in their world, the last thing they saw was that they won. But everything's changed. We're on a new timeline. They don't win.
Right.
So now you got all these pieces going on simultaneously, right? Meanwhile, as this information trickles down, it's catching up days later. So by the time it gets to the lower levels, for people who really are just following a very limited section of the RV, and everybody pretty much, even the alternative media, who's really reporting on what's going on, they're not talking about this stuff. You haven't heard anybody in the alternative media except for Thomas and I talk about, Nancy Pelosi's plot to blow up the Capitol building. I mean, that's some pretty cutting edge news, don't you think? If you got all these people got these great sources. Thomas was going in last night. I was cracking up about it actually. But
I just listening to Thomas this morning. So it was a very good show. Good.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas is always solid, but last night I thought was a really, really good show. I thought very clear. Information was great. He was in good spirits, which when Thomas is not in good spirits, it can be a little heavy. So it's good. He was in good spirits.
Yeah. Well, it definitely showed it was a very powerful. I encourage everyone to go to THI. What is the
Spreaker? You just go to Spreaker.com.
I think it's Tommy Williams now is the name of his YouTube channel.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's possible too. But so anyway, so you have all these pieces. So the Pentagon is acting as the interim treasury, right? So Kim took the same system, probably upgraded it and changed it in some ways, and that she made for the treasury. It would have taken them 4 years to build. She built it in a few days, and she implemented that in the Pentagon so they can clear their own transfers, and ultimately they'll act as a Treasury Department for us, which that's what we would want, right? So we know if you touch our transfers, you're messing with the Pentagon, right? Which anybody in their right mind would not do that. Now these fools think they own the Pentagon. I mean, they had the nerve to call the Pentagon and demand the money be given to them. Like, who are you to demand anything? Where's your when all these armies and all these places they think they control, when they all realize, hey, all you mercs out there right now that are working for your money and you've done all these things and all you want to do is just get your money, they don't got it. They'll never touch it again. Believe me when I say this. Kim tests off the charts in every single intelligence category, every single IQ category, off the charts. Can't measure it. There's no way that the masters of the mundane, somebody put that in my Twitter today, I thought was great. The masters of mediocrity, they're so dedicated to doing anybody paying attention can see what you're going to do next, right? You're going to try to RV. We know that's coming, right? You're going to try to steal the assets from the trust. We know that's coming. We know you're going to take it and try to put it to a trade platform where you're going to steal it. Then you're going to put out credits. Then you're going to do away with currency. Then you're going to make everything digital. We see you coming a mile away. Your plan is out there. We know it. We know it. And no matter how you could do that exact same thing 1,000 different ways, it's still the same plan, right? They don't see. They put so much time into this, so much money and energy just to block Kim. We could have changed the whole world just with the money they've used just to block Kim. Trillions of dollars. But anyway, so now, everybody's all revved up and amped up for the RV. Look, tell a friend, the RV is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Call Mark Z. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Let him know. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So, but pretty exciting stuff, though, because now the trust at this point, she's proven to all the major, major players, the Treasury knows, and the two characters who were there, remember there was three, the two characters that were at the Treasury, they've been removed, and Mnuchin has kind of removed himself, right? He went to China and then he committed treason.
Maybe he's not coming back.
You know what would be great? I so want this in the new Karate Kid, with like Will Smith's son, right? The last move he does is awesome, right? He gets this snake pose, right? And then he does this great backflip to knock the guy out. That's what I want to see happen to Steve Mnuchin as he steps off the plane, right? Just take the takedown. They just take him right to the ground and arrest him for treason because he's a global terrorist, right? He's trying to kill everybody. That's somebody you should definitely, take out and take down to, Guantanamo Bay. Give him a 5-star suite.
Well, it's interesting the renovations there that they're doing. They're ready for 1,000 people right now. Those accommodations are done. So I think they're expanding it to 30,000.
Well, I think I guess we'll see what happens. We'll see if any of the major real characters get taken out.
Comey looks like he's in the crosshairs right now, and Brennan. I think those are the Clapper, Comey, Brennan. I think that's what we're going to see. That those criminal charges are going to be filed. They're going to be arrested, and then it's going to go up to treason. They're going to take them out on treason charges.
Oh, you know what? Because they should. All of this stuff Yeah, these people, right now, I love this about Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham was definitely on the other side. He switched.
Yeah. I hated
And
him for years.
yeah,
Because he would never vote the right way. I'd listen to him, sounded great, but he'd vote with John McCain all the time. He was like, locked on to the hip. So I know that John McCain had something on him. I didn't know at the time it was a blackmail situation, but
yeah,
but we know that Lindsey Graham was freed. Uh, according to QAnon, he was freed. So whatever John McCain had on him, you notice that Lindsey was started changing after John McCain disappeared.
yeah.
After he went in for his cancer or whatever, and he disappeared from the public eye.
Yeah.
That's when Lindsey Graham was then freed, and he's been a champion ever since.
Yeah. Well,
the other people out there can also be just like Lindsey Graham. They can become the hero. The ones that are blocking things, the ones that are out there, you're getting that call on the burner phone. Just drop it in your big gulp, and let the people have the money so that we can start rebuilding, build our new economy, because that's what we need.
Yeah. Well, and so Lindsey Graham, you're right. Such a great. I mean, he gives hope to all of them. Look, he flipped, and we love him, right? I mean, it just goes to show, like, look, we'll forgive anybody. But we're for the people. If you would just act like the people, we'd be for you too.
It's funny thing is, I never knew Lindsey Graham was gay, right? Until he flipped.
And then it was obvious?
No, because they outed him.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, they outed him. They did protests with signs that saying, that he really likes Trump now, right? With insinuation of some very graphic things. And then they put this out on mainstream media, right? They just outed him because he flipped. Right? It didn't matter.
He's down in South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because down in South Carolina, the Bible Belt, probably frowned on a little bit more. Definitely not a center. That's a good old boy network right down there. I mean, that's serious. So.
Yeah, but I think that the ones that may have a problem with that electing him before, I think, are going to let it roll, right? Because they see that he's a champion now.
Yeah, he is too.
He's crucial. People are not stupid.
But you know what? You're right. But that needs to be focused. Like, listen, anybody out there still look? I hit up Kamala Harris like 10 times today. I kept saying to her, I'm like, you don't have to go this path. You just don't have to. You keep lying and saying horrible things. Every time you talk, it's like venom. It's awful.
You know that I sent her a letter before?
Did you?
I did.
Were you like, was it like a love letter? I mean, like, did you tell her like sweet things? Like, I don't know, maybe she's your type.
Yeah. It was because she was Attorney General of California.
California, the California Senate just passed a law to make it so in 2020, as of 2020, to run for president in the state of California, that you have to reveal 5 years of taxes to be on the primary. And I thought to myself, I'm like, wow, you guys are. I mean, that is not obvious at all, right? I mean, like, really? Like, come on. I mean, the agenda is so awful right now. California is the hub for the cabal, right?
Yeah. When I sent the letter to her, it was because of medical marijuana. I was the president of the Los Angeles Collective Association, and there was some things that that were coming towards her, and so we wanted to kind of like give our opinion about this. But she was pretty much pro. That was the consideration. That's actually part of her campaign when she was running. She actually carried the pro medical marijuana people with her because of some of the things that she stated. So anyway, that's the reason that I sent her a letter. But in particular, though, I find it interesting that they that they're going towards a route of asking everyone for their tax returns. Right? It's kind of a how does your business is doing or not doing have anything to do with what you're doing in that? So what if you were a plumber and you're running, right? So now they can make fun of you that you haven't made enough money to run, right? So they're gonna people are gonna.
I think they just did it. I just think they did it because they think they'll find a way to trap President Trump and get his tax returns.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So in order to be in the primary in California for running for, you have to reveal it. I see.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean, I could be wrong about that, but that's what it felt like to me. Yeah.
Well, so, I think that it doesn't matter to Trump, but what he's doing, it's another missile that they don't see coming at them, because he's going to be using his tax returns to come out, because there's no problem with them, right? Yeah, they would have come out if there was a problem in there. But when he does make them available, he's going to use it in such a way that it's really going to be harmful to the others. I don't know what exactly it is, but it won't matter. He'll reveal the 5 years back at that time. It won't matter to him. Well, actually, wait a minute. The last 5 years tax return for Trump, right? He's been in office for 4.
Yeah, exactly, right. And he was running for office the rest of the time, so he was squeaky clean then. Yeah. Well, so with all these different pieces going on, it's I had kind of a revelation today, and just in case Tui comes on, I want to get this out now, because I do think this is a reality that we can change everything, and it is so simple that I shot 2 videos today on this, and we're gonna put them out. So when they come out, just remember this message, and try to let it set in on your mind, right? So what they're doing is this: between the mainstream media and social media, right, and just the added environmental things. But let's just focus on the things we can control, right? Now, we can't control the mainstream media, but social media is really the most engaging news source right now. I guarantee you people can relate to this. When you go onto your social media page, or your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter, whatever, and there's so much negative, idiotic things being said. You have over and over again, the deep state comes out and they make horrible accusations that they themselves are guilty of. And that is one of the most frustrating things in the world, right? To see happen over and over again, right? Just to come out and just constantly be accusing people of what you're doing, right?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had really worked out a way of handling that in the Personomy software, because people were literally, they had an integrity score. And so if people found that what they were saying was not real, it basically went to an arbitration process between people that were randomly chosen out of the groups that would get credited for participating in this thing, and they reviewed the evidence, right? And so if someone was going to say that something was not legitimate, then you could basically call them on it and say, okay, well, here, so if someone is bad mouthing someone and casting falsehoods, you could prove it out, and then their integrity score would go down to a point where it's not even viewable, right, by people when they come up to make comments. So they set, it's basically a regulation. It's kind of what YouTube is presenting that they're doing, right, or even Facebook. Is that community guidelines, right, to keep censor stuff that is shouldn't be at the top of the list of anyone. So it's just on the wrong side. It's like the system that has an agenda is going to be a problem, right, for people that are against the agenda, and so those people will never have a say, or they're moving them out. I was just watching, some of what's happening with Alex Jones and his crew, right? I'm just, I understand that this is the canary in the coal mine controlled opposition. They're supposed to be, the sacrificial lamb. But they're making their money, as playing off of the fact that they're being censored. They get more people to donate to them, they're moving money out of the system into their hands.
Right.
Anyway, sorry, it's just
no. I was I feel you.
It just gets me because I could see this coming, and I started designing this, a decade ago. This particular part about the censorship, because I could see that people need to be able to have their own preference about what they want to have walk into, right? And
sure,
because if you're walking down the street and there's a kid's bookstore, and right next to it is an adult bookstore, which one you want to go in, right? If you want to go to an adult bookstore, it's there. But on the internet, you have no idea what's going to be around the corner, right? And you're not walking down the street; you're in it, right? So there's no way to. So you need to have those tools so that you could basically know where you want to be able to go into or not,
right?
or even on your block. So I was
absolutely.
I think this is
it's a good idea.
I want to get back into the development of this particular software. I have to really start from scratch on it. I have all the development notes of hundreds of hours working with the development teams that were all recorded. All the development stuff was recorded, and basically go back in to redo it, because the team was lost because the lead developer decided that he was going to start take the patents that I had basically filed and use them for his own business. Well, we had an agreement to do a certain business about it. It had to do with bank security. It was a way of securing banks. So we were using this encryption technology that was basically my intellectual property. So I said, we're going to do it. We're going to do a 50-50 partnership on a particular type of use of that technology to help banks. And since he decided, well, instead of 50-50, I'm going to give you 2%. I said, well, it's not yours to give. That's what started the big problem, and so it literally stopped the whole production of that. So come to know later that he was actually influenced by someone who was probably influenced by the cabal to get this.
He was driving under the influence.
Yeah, there was.
But he had not.
He was manipulated into thinking that he should do it this way, and that it would be. Anyway, but it just ended this. But to restart this whole line and get this whole reprogrammed into a new thing, I still use the same encryption technologies and that, but the methodology of how everything was tied together really goes into why I called it persona meme, because everyone would put on a different persona so you could handle different aspects of your life, because everyone has several hats that they wear. Sometimes you wear a hat of a parent, and that's your parent persona. Sometimes you wear your business persona, and you may have more than one business. So you have a different persona for each of those businesses, and their interactions and that were environments that were easy to switch back and forth on. And it also recognized you as a sovereign individual, and that you owned all of that information. It wasn't owned by Google and Facebook and everyone else. And then you could market your own data if you wanted to, right? If you wanted to present your data out, and you could do it anonymously, or you could do it as part of, because you want to be public about your data. And let's say I'd taken an example. My assistant at the time was a raw foodie, right? And so she was compiled a database of where she had, the people she would get her food from, right? That were creating raw foods. So she could have a persona of her raw foodie, right? And people could follow her. And then when she wanted to have present to them, information that was about where to get milk, raw eggs, raw whatever. She'd be able to then, have those people following her. They'd know her. She would go, and then if she wanted to market that, she could turn it into, where she was charging people for access to her information. Right. So, anyway, it was pretty all encompassing. Also, creating businesses and people coming together in a decentralized fashion. They come together for a purpose. Will say you wanted to have a traffic light, because this corner really needs a traffic light, and so you bring people together to agree, and that gets presented to the governing body that says, "Oh, a lot of people want to have a traffic light here." Right, so then the engineer gets pulled into it, does a traffic study, so it was a system that would form around any particular idea and present it. And some of these things are, that you don't need to have that group exist after the traffic light is built, right? Right. So it goes away, right? So that could be for any sort of thing. So anyway, that's a whole other topic into itself. We should maybe get into maybe having some shows about how do we create abundance-based systems, and how to do social interaction between people that's not in Facebook and YouTube and the others. So we can start this. We have to use these tools right now, but
I think it's good. I like to, I think I would imagine we'll end up using Personomy to expand the creators network, right? At some point.
Sure. Yeah, the whole concept, it's a good test bed, right? I use the medical marijuana industry as a test bed, right? Because people would have their own persona for a medical purpose. And so it was it followed HIPAA rules and regulations so that security was maintained around every individual's data. But there's 30,000 people that use the system, right? Everyone had biometrics, and they had the keys to get in and out. We had no idea how to get to your data. There was no possibility. It was yours.
See, that's great.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Wait, a social media platform that doesn't steal my information? How novel!
Isn't it? Isn't it crazy? Yeah. It's the reverse. That's it. We've got a perfect model of what not to do.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Well, okay, look.
We just
so listen, I gotta get this out because I'm going to give everyone the code that everyone can participate with. Every single person on this call, every person in the world, everyone can take this action, and I am about to give you the code that will bring down the order. Right? This is top secret information right now. This will break the matrix. Okay. Now, social media is the one platform where we are being played all the time. They're using these tactics to divide us against each other. And part of what they're doing right now is, and you can see the stress on these people's face that they don't even believe what they're saying, right? They come out, they repeat something, they don't give any evidence to what they're saying. They just throw out words and they act very passionate about it, probably because they're terrified of something, right? Mm-hmm. And they do this over and over and over again, right? And they are falling apart. I mean, you see them like they're losing hair in front of you, right? It's terrible. It's a tragedy. Meanwhile, you have people like, Candace Owens and just other voices like Barr coming out and just getting stronger and more confident, right? And they know they're on the right side of the battle, and they're speaking with such detail, such clarity, right? But still, it causes constant division, conflict, confusion, anxiety. You know, people are sad, they're mad. I was watching people today, and they're like, I don't know how much longer I can take this. They were falling apart, right? So this will crack the code. This will crack the code. We have to withdraw from any negative engagement with any of them, because what they're doing is they are harvesting energy. Now, you'll know what I'm saying is true the next time you go into social media. I want you to pay attention to your energy, because when you go in, as you read things, if you're there for more than 10 minutes, you'll feel your energy being drained by it. They're taking your energy. They're taking the anxiety and they're feeding on it. Okay. Now, this is what's happening. And all those people you see publicly, they have no power. They are just the slaves that are being used to do this, right? To gather our energy this way. And so the only way to overcome it is to realize what they're doing. Now, if you realize it, then there should be some compassion for the people that are being forced to do this, right? They're being forced to do. They have no choice. They're being blackmailed. Their life is horrible right now. They are being terrorized constantly. So you can change the world by doing this. I'm not kidding. I swear to God on my life, this is true. Everything is frequency. Everything is frequency. And they are now looking at the frequency at a whole different level. They're looking at the waves created, and the waves created by our thoughts, our words, and our actions. They create waves that literally sculpt the reality that we live in. Now, we keep talking and saying that we want to create a reality that is based and rooted in love, right? Because no matter what is fake in this whole creation, which apparently is everything, right? Nothing we know is entirely accurate. The one thing, the one thing you can always hold on to that you know is real is love. Now, whether you're in love, right? Whether you have a child and you're in love with your child, you're in love with what you do, you're in love with who you are, whatever that love is, nobody can take that from you. It's the in the midst of the storm and the chaos and the matrix, that love is still real. Now, they have tried to beat, destroy, take, rape, steal that from us. And they have never been able to beat us entirely. They've never been able to just completely enslave us because of love. Because love grounds us to the planet. Love is coming from above, from below, and emanates from inside of us, right? It's all over. And everything we go to build will be based in love. So now imagine the negative feeling you get when you see all this mess out there, all the bad news. Now flip it. And I'm gonna give you phrases, and I'm gonna ask you to do this. We're gonna literally launch this as a campaign, and I'm telling you, in 24 hours we can change the world. We'll bring down everything. Will come down. Everything will change. The money will come through. 24 hours. Here's how you do it. Take advantage of their weapon, just the way you see Kim doing it, and just the way you see Trump doing it. Take their weapon. And every time they come out with something negative, every time they come out with something, I want you to go in and just do something you would never do. Just tell them. Just say, I love you. I appreciate you. I see you. And thank you for what you're doing. It makes me better. This is ho'oponopono, right? Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Apply that. Now, I'm telling you, this is real. And I've seen this work in my own life. But Paul, my lawyer, he got really into this. And Chalet was just talking to me about this one guy. He took all these files from this criminally insane hospital. And each time he would be so emotionally affected, right, by it, it would remind him of something in his own life. And so he would do Ponopono, right? And what happened is, as he did that for himself, it actually changed the DNA in these criminally insane people, and the hospital cleared out because they all just started being healed, because he started doing it with all of them, and and he wasn't doing it on purpose. Just by him doing it for himself, right? Just by doing that for himself, dealing with his own issues in his life within himself, just as things would come up, he dealt with that, and they were healed. Now imagine if we just apply that energy on a social media platform, and you open up that platform and all these same dumb things are being said, but instead the responses, instead of a bunch of knuckleheads throwing out racial slurs and and cussing and saying clever ways to say mean things and creating evil memes, if everything there was thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you. And I am telling you, if you just did if you just dared to lead with love like that for 24 hours, if we grabbed 5% of the population, 5% of the population, I'm telling you, everything you ever wanted would conspire for you instantaneously. 24 hours. Give me those 24 hours, and don't put anything else on any of your social media platforms. Anywhere. Just those principles. However you want to express them. Just do that for 24 hours. I'm telling you, it will create a frequency that will elevate the entire planet. So I had to tell you that, man, because I had to share that because I'm dead serious about that too.
Well, this is very much reminiscent of Gandhi style, right? We were talked about the other day, because his whole method was non-participation, right? So by non-participating in the negative, by being positive, it actually will counter what they're doing. It's very similar.
And it's the pushing hands, right? Like Tai Chi pushing hands, right? As they press into you, you use their energy and momentum, and you redirect them to use that against them, right? And you're just using their energy. Now, they're exhausted right now, and we have to take them down.
They're exhausted.
Take them down. They're exhausted. They're wrecked. It's so hard to keep up with the constant hate facade, right? They run the hate machine. They have to come up with new reasons to hate Trump every day. And sometimes Trump will say something, they're like, damn, that was good, right? They want to, and they can't. Right? They can't do it.
So, yeah. I saw this, it's a YouTube, it's called Vine, I believe, or Vice. No, it's Vice, VICE. I don't know what it stands for, but they were talking with, it was part of, they were doing an interview with people out of Blexit, like the black people.
Yeah, the black exit, right? Sure.
So they're black people exiting the Democratic Party. And they're now, so they're talking with conservative young blacks. I mean, these are like 20-somethings that were being talked. They were talking about this. And the guy that was doing the interview, he was kind of like on the liberal side of things. And he's kind of like looking at this little cross-eyed, and he's interviewing them. But he's kind of being drawn in a little bit, right? So he's, if they're, Trump saying, something he'd like to agree with, but he's trying to catch himself from not going down that line.
Yeah.
But then they brought then they brought a group of young blacks in the 20-something with the conservative young blacks and had them have a conversation, and they were, it was always about accusations, right? That I would say were unfounded about Trump, right? Or conservatives in general, and the young and some, and they don't really have the ability, the verbal acumen to kind of work their way into explaining their position on the conservative side. I felt that they were a little bit, being beaten down, right? In the position. They still held their own, but they really were not really convincing too much. I mean, obviously there was some, back and forth, but I can see that it's just so ingrained that they have to, you can only say these certain things, and if you don't say these things, then you're wrong. There's no other point of view. You can't say any part. It's so black and white. No pun intended. And this is that they were literally saying that you had to be on these issues if you were black. That's how damning it is, to be on the other side of it. So, and I remember and I was, in Cal State Long Beach, for my master's in electrical engineering, and they had the first free speech zones going up back then. I'm going, what is that? I wouldn't step inside that to speak. I'm going to speak outside of there and say that that's wrong.
Well, it's amazing. Did you see this guy? I don't even know who he is. I mean, he was like a drunken fisherman, but I guess he's a congressman somewhere, right? Talking about, you're going to abort him now or kill him later, doesn't matter. And he said, and he just went through a whole list. He attacked, he attacked like Trump's son or something. Like, that's one could have been aborted. The things he was saying, I'm like, he sounded like a, kind of like a drunken hillbilly that you might see down in New Orleans, like, who just given up. Like, I mean, he just all fat and out of shape. His tie was, I mean, I was like, what's wrong with this guy, right? I mean, but he wasn't the only one. It's like, I don't understand what they have on these people. They're willing to make absolute asses of themselves at this time. Because I'll tell you, I would love any time. I would love to talk to any liberal. Matter of fact, I am liberal minded, right? I'm not a liberal the way we define it, but I'm open minded because that's all it means to be liberal, right?
Right.
Like, I'm open minded because I don't know everything, and you know what? I don't mind. Well, I'd rather not be wrong, but if I'm wrong, I don't mind admitting it.
Yeah, I never consider being conservative because it was like I'm not liberal minded. I'm very open minded to a lot of things, so that's why I never really went with that theory. I always went to really, it was a mellow form of socialism or communism. It's to be the liberal in the way they take it on as they were painting the brush of how people are liberal or conservative. I only looked at it from they're starting from a light form of socialism, and then but it's really was just the path to communism, the deep state religion. Again, go to Edge of Wonder, see their series. It really will explain everything about what socialism, communism is, and where it came from, and how it plays into the cabal. Literally, the Illuminati, the creators of this deep state religion.
Yep.
So please go look at it.
Yeah, some of these things that, I mean, they're just hard to imagine. That people have this much hate and venom in them to just keep coming up with new ways to do and to say awful things just for the sake of being in control. Never in my life have I felt like control was more important than love. I just, to me, I'd rather give up some ground. I'd rather give up some ground and and stay close to the people I love. I just can't imagine. Like, people just they destroy families over these things, these issues. They get so wrapped up in different indoctrination. And the whole country is divided into these different regions where they pit everyone against each other. And so it depends on where you are in the country. But like the news you get might be only one side, and all you hear is X, Y, and Z. Then you come up to New York, and all you hear is the opposite. I mean, for whatever Cuomo up here, um, Mario Cuomo's son, the governor of New York, for him to have the nerve, I mean, the audacity in the United States of America to say publicly that conservatives have no place living in New York. That if you are pro-life, you should go live somewhere else. What? Who do you think you are, you scumbag? Man, that guy, I tell you what, I can't wait until we are just in a position. I might have to run for office at some point. And I'll tell you, I don't even care if I win. I will run for office just to have a platform to speak out against these fools repeatedly, because I just can't stand that they're allowed to speak that way. But you know what? I'm gonna apply a little ho'oponopono to that. So, Mr. Cuomo, I love you. Thank you for being so diabolically evil that it makes it so easy for me to stand up.
Thank you for being diabolically evil.
I'm sorry I said that. Please forgive me. But anyway.
Well, there's a balance there.
Yeah.
Because obviously, the love you want to express, right, is you have to have it in context of how you can move past the anger and negative feelings that come out of what they're doing. But at the same time, there's a purpose for that, that negativity, right? When someone has done something so horrendous that you have to be motivated to stop it.
Yes, absolutely. So, and you know what? And that's absolutely true. We do have to stop it. The thing is, the catch is, it's kind of like you don't. I know they say fight fire with fire, but you know what? Water puts out fire.
Look at this. So Trump is the master of the playground. I mean, he's calling names all the time on these people, right? He's naming them and basically destroying them with a name. Pencil neck, shift, right? Pencil neck shift. So now everyone, look at him. I actually took one of Shift's pictures and I extended his neck probably 3 inches.
That's nice of you.
And good if I could do it on a video that he did. Just lift his head up, a couple inches. All right, and then so what he'll lion he'll say lion Comey or whatever. He just adds he names them, but it's very he has a comic edge to it, right? And it literally has a positive energy towards what he's saying for a negative situation, right? And so it's a way of taking that negative that's coming out of that side and kind of making fun of them. So.
Well, maybe, but and I do understand that, and believe me, I'm obviously an advocate of that. I at times, but you know what? I am fully persuaded. I fully understand, as Stewie would say. I fully understand that the answer is love. So you know what? I'm just gonna I'm gonna encourage everyone to stay with ho'oponopono, because I just think, what, you can be clever and say all types of things, but you know what? If you want to change the frequency and the energy, if you want to be clever in war and have everybody, a bunch of conservatives admire you for being, cool, that's fine. But if you want to change the world, I think this is a better way. So I'm gonna, try my best. Because obviously I'm not trying to hide. I'm very comfortable with my own self-righteous indignation. But but at
That's
the
very
same time,
positive.
but I feel better just thinking about that as a pathway personally. As just thinking about it makes me feel better. Like my energy changes just thinking about it.
Well,
That's
okay,
how powerful that is.
yeah. Look at the Taekwondo, concept though. Like taking the stuff I'm just you keep with the same example here. Trump calling names, right? He's taking their energy they're sending at him, and he's making it into a comedy and sending it right back to him. It literally is schoolyard, the playground, attitude and calling names and it just turns it back around on them. So is it a negative thing or is it positive? I mean, that's the question. He's not saying I love you, unless he's saying I love that you gave me this opportunity
No.
to make fun of you.
I do think anger and I mean, I do think there is something. I mean, when you're raising your energy, period, it's not always negative. It's certainly not always negative. You know, you can. I mean, I'm a fervent believer, and when I am mad about something, and I know why. Because I never let my temper get a hold of me,
Mm.
to where it has control of me. But I consciously raise my energy on those issues because I feel that there's too many of us that just let them go by, right? And for the most part, if we were connected enough to ourselves to realize a lot of times we'll let people walk all over us, not because we're so benevolent, but because we've just been beaten down so many times we don't have any fight left. Now that will never that won't happen. I'll still have a fight, but I do. I just think it's balanced. I think a little more forgiveness, a little more love is there's nothing bad that's going to come from that. Now, I will say I'm not a fan of being abused either. Now that would be just as negative, right? Now
Right.
these fools who have done the exact same things, um these sources that have been threatening, or promising the RV, I don't know which, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And they're the ones who know they don't have access, right? They know they don't have it. And not only that, but they know every time they try to get access, they keep getting beat down. They know they're not going to get. Chairman Powell, he said that. He said that they're effed. You know, he knows. He knows. They all know. And right now, today, I saw it. Like the HN guys were saying, like the Democrats, they know. Democrats being the majority leader in the House of the deep state at this time, right? they're they know the gig is up. They're getting beat on every level, and all they're doing right now is just trying to breathe. They're just fighting for air right now. So I look forward to politely dismissing them and letting them go on their way, and they can go down whatever path they would like to and pursue. They can be the cigarette dealer in the prison yard if they want, or the best license plate maker in the world. They can get their degree. Whatever they want to do in prison, they can. But they just can't. They just have to be out of the world. They can't just walk away from all this. And you know what? And I forgive them for that, and I thank them for their service to help us all be better and see the face of evil played out through one of the most profound displays of ignorance in the history of mankind. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I appreciate all that.
Yeah, I can see, as negative as it is, it means that we can be on the other side just as positive. It's the complete opposite, the swinging of the pendulum back to the other side. But we need to like now use this as a launching point and leave that negativity as though it was just a blip on the radar, from ancient times, and we're out, 10,000 years into the future of all prosperity and goodness and expansion, and we're all over the galaxy, all over the universe, and wherever we go, we're doing positive things. we're great engineers, apparently.
apparently. Yeah. So I just think right now's the time to finish them off. And I'm telling you. But like, put me to the test on this. You watch. If you could get one other person to do what I ask you to do, to go into your social media and just in some way, shape, or form, all that negativity, whatever you see. If you're someone who often has a witty comment, right, or something, snarky to say back, just replace it. Replace it with something in the world of, ho'oponopono, right?
But if you tell some of these like trolls that are like gathering up, I love you, thank you so much, they're just going to melt. They're just going to dissolve. You would have harmed them so much that they literally won't be in existence anymore. So is that really a good thing to do?
I think so. Listen, if Congress people start melting because we tell them we love them, if the deep state just starts melting away because we're like, look, I love you. You know what? You don't have to say those words. Maybe that's too much for you. You know what? But you can demonstrate that you love yourself, your family, this world, the planet, whatever, right? Your grandma. You can demonstrate it by the way you carry yourself, right? Like my dad was always just like, he was always big on, you carry yourself and you represent the family all the time, like the family name. Because when I leave the house, dad's not with you, not telling you how to act. You got to know how to act, right? So when situations came up, I knew I represented the family, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, when you take that seriously and you care about it's no hard thing to be a gentleman. It's not. It's natural.
Well, it's kind of like what I said to you the other day. It's like we're talking. So I don't use foul language, right? I learned from my grandmother. If I was to say something, I think of my grandmother, right? Am I upholding the standards that my grandmother set out for me?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. No, I have a mouth like a trucker when I'm not on a call. So.
Oh, listen, I have a lot of friends that they drop everything, and I found if I was with a group of fishermen out on the water, will the F-bombs start slipping out? Yeah.
I don't know what it is about fishing, but
it's kind of like the tone of the music, right? You kind of start tapping your foot, right? You kind of get into the rhythm of it, right? And so that language just kind of rolls at that time.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, so I could say the sailors, right? But it's really usually I'm hanging out with the fishermen. Last time I think I was really on an F-bomb roll. I was out on a tuna boat.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Yeah, I know. I sometimes the way things are, it just makes you want to cuss. To be honest, it is what it is. Sometimes it's just not enough to say it any other way.
And I'm going around saying, "Oh my goodness."
I know. See, yeah, it just but that's I don't know.
I know it's just but listen, if I know that I've been speaking with you, I don't hear you dropping the bomb, right? And I'm with the other people I know that drop it all the time. So they stop, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just about the tone, the energy of the conversation. So yeah, if you want, when Steve Mnuchin gets back from China and you want to express that you love him, that's okay with me.
Well, listen, when Steve Mnuchin comes back, no, listen, and look, and I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, I definitely Steve Mnuchin, I appreciate so much the role he's played and for it to be over. I will be so grateful that he gets to spend the rest of his life in jail, and I'm sure that he will be treated like a lady the whole time he's there, and that, you know.
Or you went and got snarky at the end.
No, I was just saying. Can't help it. I can't stand that guy. I cannot stand that guy. Just the thought of him makes me mad. Every time I see him in the background of pictures, I'm like, oh, why is he there? You know. But, well, anyways, Dan, what do you think, man?
Yeah, it's okay. We're 2 hours in. That's all right. We can shut it down. Thanks everyone for joining today. Another interesting show. We'll keep it going. We're really close. So please share. Please like. We're at 84 likes and 173 watching. I think we hit 220 watching a little earlier. So we're making it up over 200 now consistently. Interesting. So that we just multiplied times 15, and that's probably what we're really at.
Well, listen, I'm about to launch the Ho'oponopono mission. So keep that in mind. Believe me when I say this, 5% of the population change the world.
Let's do it.
Man,
I could be positive.
Everybody have a good night.
All right. Good night.